You ever watch the end of a show and feel that weird mix of satisfaction and rage at the same time? Like you got the closure you asked for, but not the closure you wanted. That's exactly what just happened with you season 5. And let me tell you, Joe Goldberg's fate might be the most divisive ending of any Netflix show this decade. Now here's the thing nobody wants to admit deep down. We didn't actually want Joe to get away with everything, but we also didn't want him trapped in a cage like a sad zoo exhibit either. That's the uncomfortable tension the writers forced us to sit with. And honestly, it's genius. Or maybe it's lazy. I'll let you decide. But let me throw this curveball. What if Joe's punishment isn't really about prison at all? What if it's about something even darker? Something no fan theory on Reddit dared to say out loud. Stick with me, because I've got secrets, I've got forbidden knowledge, and I'm about to break down exactly why Joe's ending might not be as final as Netflix wants you to believe. Here's a personal confession. I binged season 5 the second it dropped. Didn't sleep, didn't eat, didn't even answer texts. And when that final scene hit, Joe behind bars, stripped of his freedom, it felt like karma had finally RSVP'd to the party. But then I asked myself the question I'm sure you asked too. Did they actually give Joe what he deserves, or did they just set up the cruelest twist of all? And real quick, before I reveal the dark little truths buried in this finale, let me say this. If you love breakdowns that don't just recap, but actually dig into the psychology, the hidden writing tricks, the wait, did I miss that? Details, then you need to hit that subscribe button right now. Because trust me, what we're about to uncover is the kind of analysis that Netflix PR wishes you wouldn't hear. All right, let's talk about the problem, the pain point, the controversy nobody can agree on. Joe Goldberg. Did he get justice, or did he get off easy? See Michael Foley and Justin Lowe. The showrunners admitted in interviews that they debated this ending for months. Joe dying was on the table. Joe escaping again was on the table. Joe maybe even living some twisted happily ever after with Kate, that was on the table too. But what did they choose? Isolation? Maximum security? No escape, no contact, no love, just walls, guards, and the echo of his own thoughts. At first glance, it seems perfect, right? The predator becomes the prey. The stalker becomes the trap. The man who spent 5 seasons turning love into a weapon is now stripped of love entirely. But here's the dirty little secret. They didn't really close the door on Joe's story. In fact, they cracked it wide open. Think about it, why show us Joe alive if the true, final punishment was supposed to be finality? Why not kill him off? Why not go full Shakespearean tragedy? Why leave him breathing? Because leaving him alive means one thing: he still has power. Not physical power, psychological power. The power to haunt us, the audience, forever. And that's where the conversation gets uncomfortable. Because the question isn't, will Joe escape prison? The real question is, what if prison is exactly where Joe thrives the most? Yeah, let that sink in. See, here's the uncomfortable secret the writers never said out loud, but hinted at in every frame of that finale. Joe Goldberg isn't really afraid of cages. He's afraid of silence. He's afraid of losing an audience. For 5 seasons, he's been narrating his life like a podcast in his own head, projecting his thoughts onto women, onto friends, onto enemies. But now, he's forced to live with the one person he's always avoided, himself. Think about how twisted that is. Prison doesn't stop Joe, it amplifies Joe. Why? Because the more isolated he is, the more obsessive his mind becomes. The more obsessive he becomes, the darker the fantasies get. And what's scarier than Joe free in the world? Joe trapped in a cage, building whole universes in his head with no one around to stop him. Let me pose a rhetorical question. What if the real end of Joe Goldberg isn't physical punishment, but spiritual decay? A slow burning insanity. A man who becomes his own cage. Doesn't that sound worse than death? And here's where the forbidden knowledge kicks in. Foley and Lowe admitted that killing Joe off was the table. They teased us with the idea that maybe he'd be punished in blood, but then they went colder than murder. They gave him eternity with no outlet, no escape hatch, no one to project his fantasies onto. Which means the writers basically confirmed Joe's greatest punishment is being Joe. Now, let me bring this closer to you. Imagine for a second, hypothetical time, you're in Joe's shoes. You're in a cell. No phone, no texts, no Instagram stalking, no cute barista at the cafe to project your obsession onto. Just you, your thoughts, your guilt, your regrets, your own voice bouncing off the walls. Could you survive that, or would your mind eat you alive? Comment below, because I honestly think most of us would lose it in 48 hours. And here's the wild callback. For those of you who watched my breakdown of Season 4, you'll remember I said Joe can only run from his reflection for so long before the mirror cracks. Well, the mirror has officially shattered. Prison isn't just his cage, it's his mirror. And we're all forced to stare at the reflection too. But let me play devil's advocate here. What if this ending isn't punishment at all? What if it's power? Stay with me, because prison isolates him physically. But what about culturally? Joe Goldberg isn't forgotten, he's infamous. In the universe, you just know tabloids, podcasts, even true crime TikTok accounts are blowing up his story. Which means Joe still has what he craves most, an audience. And here's the forbidden thought nobody wants to say out loud. Maybe prison doesn't strip Joe of his narrative power, it immortalizes it. He doesn't just live forever in his cage, he lives forever in our heads. So the question is, did the show actually give us justice? Or did they just turn Joe into a myth that can't die?